Boone. I'm very excited about this next question, so let's get into it.
Well, I want to say first, we got a ton of questions this week from the listeners. I've been putting out the last few weeks the call for questions. This week, by far the most, and probably because the fantasy playoffs are starting and people are just a little more under pressure now to make some of their decisions. But thank you to everybody out there who sent in questions. I think we got 3 good ones to talk over here. The first one is from Chase Aguiar. Do we start Omarion Hampton this week after it looks like a split against KC? Him or Kyle Monangai? Now, I have taken this. We're going to answer this question. I mean, right off the bat, we can answer this question, but I've taken this and kind of expanded it. I want to talk a little more about the rookie running backs as a whole this week and kind of how I'm ranking them. So first off, it's Hampton in my mind if we're just picking between Hampton and Monangai. And yes, it was not ideal that he came back into the split last week, but I think you could say that that's fine. They had him on some sort of pitch count. He still got through for fantasy. He looked good in that game, and presumably he'll just continue to get more work. He is the lead back there. So Vidal might be a thorn in his side going forward, but I think we're going to see Hampton just get more and more work here and take over that backfield. So if we're picking between those two guys, he is the one that I'm going with there. Now, as for the rookie running backs as a whole, these rankings are as of Thursday afternoon, so I have to mention that because they're going to change. I will admit they are going to change over the next few days. I'm going to continue to do research and work on them, but I'll try to talk through some of the spots where I think they actually might change over the next couple days because some of them I can, kind of potentially see with injuries and stuff. But right now I have them ranked, as people can see on the screen there. Travion Henderson at RB15, Quinshon Judkins at RB16, Ashton Genty at RB17. You might be sensing a pattern here. They're very close together, a bunch of them. RJ Harvey at RB18, Hampton at RB25, as I mentioned, and that's a little bit lower than you would hope, but that's because of the split. Woody Marks at RB26, and he's one that I definitely think can move up because Nick Chubb did not practice again today. So when I do my next update, Woody Marks certainly could be inside the top 20. He could jump quite a bit here. Devin Neal at RB27, and then Monangai at RB31. And I will just mention again, keep an eye on that Chris Rodriguez practice participation, because if he is not out there this week, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt would be in that same range as potentially a top 30 guy at running back. So is there anybody in there specifically that you want to discuss, Harmon? I can go through them all if you want, but is there anybody that you want me to highlight specifically?
I actually kind of want to drill in on the Hampton thing because I think people might be overthinking the fact that he was in a split last week. Like, yeah, Kamani Vidal was involved. He led the team in snaps. That's because he's in there to pass protect, especially after Hampton got Justin Herbert lit up once. And look, they couldn't afford for Justin Herbert to get lit up any more than he absolutely has to, because he's going to get lit up no matter what behind that offensive line, and he's dealing with the broken left hand. So, that obviously was, I think, it's something that got Hampton put on the bench a little bit there from the pass protecting standpoint. But look, the reality is, like, it was a 15-15 touch split. Hampton got more what I would say like priority usage in the passing game. He ran 8 routes, 2 targets. Kamani Vidal ran 24 routes, 3 targets. Obviously, he made the one big play, but Hampton got the work inside the 5-yard line. I just could see this being like, okay, yeah, this next week, Hampton plays more snaps than Vidal, who's still going to mix in a little bit, and it just really doesn't matter that much. It's not as if it's the greatest spot in the world, and obviously working behind that offensive line is not super ideal. But regardless, I think Hampton, I don't like really quibble with your order all that much, but I just think people might be overthinking the Hampton stuff at this stage.
Do you have him higher? Do you move him up into more like the low end RB2 range then?
Yeah, people are starting to get on me that I hate Ashton Genty. I don't hate Ashton Genty. I just hate the Raiders, and I hate, honestly, quite frankly, I hate what they've done to him. So that's maybe why I keep lashing out at this. But I actually think I could make a case that both RJ Harvey and Omarion Hampton are in better spots than Ashton Genty this week. But Hampton Genty is pretty close. Like I would have them back to back probably. But Harvey actually is the one that I think deserves to be a little bit higher on the list.
To be honest, like all 4 of those guys that I have above Hampton, they kind of all have some warts. Like the Henderson thing is we don't know how much Ramondre Stevenson's going to be involved, right? And we saw last time out, he was pretty heavily involved. And on this show, before Stevenson came back, I made the comment that I would like pull my hair out if he somehow was the quote unquote lead back and getting more touches than Henderson. And we kind of saw something like that happen. Like, I don't understand it, but like, go back to the preseason. I had mentioned this stat, but you think back to Jahmyr Gibbs' rookie year, he shared his backfield. He only played about 56% of the Lions snaps that year. He finished as the RB11 in fantasy points per game, right? It's not like this type of back who can be explosive, who can have these big plays. It's not like they can't get there for fantasy, even if they are in like a 50-50 split, essentially. And that's basically what Henderson seems like he's in right now. And this matchup, of course, with the Bills, it's just a great opponent. The Bills are letting everybody run on them. They've been maybe a little bit better recently against the run, but overall, I think you can run on the Bills like crazy. They're allowing the 5th most rushing yards on the year. They're allowing the most rushing touchdowns on the year. So I think Henderson is going to have a good game there, even though there's some kind of question marks around him. Judkins is in an interesting spot because the matchup isn't that scary. The Bears have been giving up some pretty decent games to running backs lately. The weather's also going to be cold, so maybe they lean on the run even more than they already do. But the Bears are 7.5 point favorites. I think Judkins just might get left in the dust a little bit. He has been involved in the passing game. He's been getting some targets, but he's not necessarily completely that guy that's going to get 6-7 catches or something that's going to keep him in the mix if they fall way behind.
Dylan Sampson
that one's another
5
one we're going to watch the weather because I think
too.
that could impact the outlook. Sorry, what was that?
No, I said Dylan Sampson got in the mix for like 5 catches and like 60-something yards last week for the Browns as well. So that doesn't help Judkins' outlook.
For sure. And then that brings us to Genty, where he's coming off one of his worst games of the season. And yes, the matchup was tough, but the offense is just so bad. Like you're saying, they might start Kenny Pickett this week. If he starts, this is not going to be one of those like revenge spots. Like, oh man, Kenny Pickett's going to come through with the big day. It's going to be even worse. And right now, Vegas, massive underdogs. The game only has a 38.5 projected point total. The Raiders' implied point total, Harmon, is 13.5 this week. That is like as low as you will ever see. So it's hard to have a lot of confidence in Genty. Like, again, you hope that he could get like 6-7 catches or something to get him through. But in a matchup last week, we saw him really just get, totally bottled up. So not great for him. And then Harvey's this one where I think you and I talked about this on Fantasy Football Live on Sunday. This is one where I'm kind of worried because the last 2 weeks, it might seem insane for me to preach any sort of caution about Harvey, but the last 2 weeks, top 5 fantasy back, he's been great, right? Like he's come through for fantasy. And yet the matchups now are going to get way, way harder for him here. And we saw in a tougher spot that first start that he had, it was against the Chiefs. He only had 50 scrimmage yards. He didn't find the end zone in that game. And then last week against the Commanders, which was like a great setup for him, 62 yards. 2 weeks ago, 62 yards. And that was an overtime game, but he saved it with the touchdowns. And then, of course, last week, the Raiders game, he looked great. That was the best he's looked so far. But now the degree of difficulty is going to get a lot harder for him. The Packers defense inside the top 10 for fewest fantasy points allowed to RBs. So I'm just preaching, like, it's not like you're going to bench him necessarily, but I'm just preaching a little bit of caution. I think he belongs down in this range, more of like a mid to low end RB2. I don't know that you're going to see another RB1 performance from him because the schedule gets much tougher these next couple weeks.
It's funny. I pretty much completely agreed. And this, you might end up being right about this. I completely agreed with your stance on Harvey, everything you just outlined there prior to last week. And I even remember both of us saying, like, he's going to be good against the Raiders. Don't worry about it this week. This is a next, few games after that take. Yeah, I do think that he answered a few questions for me in that game. And I get it. The Raiders are the Raiders. But like from an efficiency perspective, whether it's yards after contact or rush yards over expected, he definitely took a step forward in that game. And I think just watching him, he felt a little bit more decisive. He's hitting holes. He's not trying to take everything to the corner store. He's really being a little bit more of a true running back. And he's a developmental guy. He hasn't been a running back forever. He was a collegiate quarterback at one point. So like, this is a guy that I think is getting better. So I kind of want to bet on him just to be a little bit too big to fail because he's the lead back, goal line work, pass catching, all that stuff. But you're 100% right. There's no question he is in a tougher spot this week than he was previously. So it's just interesting how all these guys, I kind of wanted to have this conversation too, because I had a buddy texting me and he seemed to have like all of these second-year or rookie running backs on his roster. So I was like, man, it is tough to pick between these guys this week because none of them is truly in a matchup or in a workload situation where it's just like, yes, green light. And yet I do think they're all fantasy starters this week, with the exception of, Manungai, Devin Neal, Woody Marks. Those are kind of deeper names.
Yeah, Woody Marks, though, is the one of those deeper names that I think could pop up, like I said earlier. If Nick Chubb isn't practicing, then you look at it's going to be like Dario Gunbowale as the number 2 back there. So we could see Woody Marks hasn't really had like the huge performances. He's gotten a decent amount of volume. This could potentially be a week where if he's out there, if he's healthy, and if Chubb isn't, he would vault up a little bit in these rankings and be a guy that I might be excited to play, actually, where right now where I have him ranked, you're not the most excited. It's more just like somebody you're putting in there because you need that spot covered up.
No, totally. I do feel almost bad for Woody Marks. It's like handling way too many touches for a guy in his frame and his size. You almost just feel bad for him, but it's good for us in fantasy. I have one Woody Marks dynasty team and I need him out there getting 25 touches. So, ice up, buddy. We got to have you touch that ball a lot this week for my sake. So that's what really matters.